Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play Team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. My name is Michael Diamond. I am your keeper for the evening, and I would like to welcome you to episode 3 of Horror on the Orient Express. And so I'd like to take you around the table and do table introductions if I could. To my right.
Hi, I'm Mike, and I'm playing James Robert Fraser.
And to his right.
Hi, I'm Rena Hensey, and I'm playing Lady Elizabeth Fitzroy.
And at the end of the table.
Hi, I'm Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith.
To his right.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm playing Maggie Belanger.
And last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Professor Richard Courtney.
Wonderful. Well, when we last left our investigators, a couple of them have gotten some pretty sudden news by way of the daily paper. They'd read a rather tragic story of Professor Smith's home catching fire and burning. And it seems, now that the morning has turned to mid-morning, some of them are getting this news fresh. And so, outside your house in Vauxhall, Martin, there's a knock at your door.
Hello?
Professor, you hear a voice call from beyond the door.
Yes, who is it?
It's Peter Jennings. I'm just down the road. You know this, Mr. Jennings. He's a gentleman that lives 4 or 5 down from you towards the station. He's a rather reasonable gentleman, probably a bit picky about his yard, but other than that, you know him as a fairly decent neighbor. There's word here of your professor friend.
What about him?
It seems his hut's caught fire.
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
The paper here. You may want to get a read on this.
Right. Yes, give me a minute.
Yeah, you collect yourself and make yourself reasonably presentable. And when you open the door to your house, you see Jennings there with a paper outstretched to him, and you see folded back on a couple of inner pages, you see a story that reads, Professor's home burns, and then under it says fears for his safety. The continuing information is rather shocking.
My word. Do you mind if I take this?
Quite all right.
Thank you.
I hope he's all right.
Yes, I should head over there immediately. I'll thank you for this. Thank you for pointing this out to me. Richard's just going to head sort of straight back into the house there and close the door summarily. Politeness isn't forefront in his mind at the minute. He's going to scan the paper, just see what he can get from the article, to just see what's going on, really.
Yeah, I mean, as it reads, it seems his house burned under mysterious circumstances. It looks like it's being investigated by Detective Sergeant Rigby at Scotland Yard in the arson division. And they're asking for anyone who might know the whereabouts of Professor Smith to make themselves available to Scotland Yard.
So Richard is just going to do the bare minimum he needs to. So he's going to chuck a jacket on, get some shoes ready, just check that he's turned off the hob. He's quite picky about his routine leaving the house, and while he's quite flustered, he's going to do his normal checks, check the door, check the hobs off, and head on over to St John's Wood and see what on earth this is all about.
We'll now check in with Simon. It's roughly midday or so for you, and it seems anyway that the news has gotten rather dark about Professor Smith. While you didn't notice it initially through your read through the paper, a second glance, just trying to catch up on all the things that are going on, reveals a pretty horrifying story. And it begins to worry you given all the things that are on your plate.
I better check in. We've got that Kensington meeting soon, but I'll go check with Professor Courtney and see how or what he is doing about this.
Okay. So, I guess that beggars the question, do you know where Professor Courtney is or lives?
Absolutely not.
But that doesn't mean he's unfindable.
I'll ring the university and ask.
They let you know that the professor is not in class, as there are no classes for him today. But they can surely take a message for him and hope that he would reply promptly.
Would you be able to give me his place of residence? I understand that his mentor, Dr. Smith, has had a house fire, and I wanted to follow up with Dr. Smith and with Professor Courtney. It was in the papers.
Why don't you make me a luck roll?
That would be a negatory, Ghost Rider.
The lady on the phone says, I'm not truly aware of his exact residence. I apologize. I know that he doesn't live too far. They've seen him walking near the area before. Is there perhaps a number I could bring you back on?
Yes, ma'am. This is the number I am currently at. I give him the number for the boarding house.
Sure. As soon as I find out, I'll bring you back. Obviously, I hadn't read the paper. I hadn't heard about Professor Smith's house burn. That's terrible.
It is, and I'm just trying to check in on both of them and see how everyone is doing.
Of course. I will do my best to get back to you very quickly, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move the camera to Kensington, where Lady Fitzroy is enjoying a midday, perhaps a bit less now after hearing of the incident of Professor Smith's house burning.
Yes, I think today I'm not going to be leaving the house. I'm not feeling super well today, so I'm going to sit in my sitting room, do some reading, occasionally just look up, like I'm listening for the phone to ring or looking out the window, staring off pensively, just having a quiet, thoughtful morning.
How very period drama of us.
Of course.
So you find her in this state, Mr. Fraser, fresh with the news from Scotland Yard that Detective Sergeant Rigby is rather swamped with this arson case, but that he has put Milady's concerns at the top of his list and will be back to her as soon as he can be.
Your Ladyship, I believe this Detective Sergeant Rigby will hopefully be here later on today. I would imagine that he would make it a priority to come and see you.
I would rather think he would.
However, I dare say there's a fair bit of investigative work to be done to discover the cause of this fire. It may be, I don't know, is Mr. Beddoes the manservant? Obviously he's not to be found, so I don't know. Perhaps they're investigating that.
Yes, it's all so dreadful. I can't quite believe that this Beddoes would have been involved, but you never know.
Well, you never know. People can be driven to a lot of things that one might not expect of them given the correct circumstances, Your Ladyship. My fear is for Professor Smith himself. I very much hope he wasn't in the house when the fire occurred.
Yes, well, it does look a bit suspicious, doesn't it? That they can't find him. And surely if he wasn't at home, he would have turned up by now.
I would have thought so, yes. Yes, it is most worrying.
There's a knock at the door.
Excuse me, Your Ladyship. I'll go over and answer the door.
You see a rather pensive and busy Hughes. Beg your pardon. Mr. Fraser, there is a...
Yes, Mr. Hughes. How can I help?
Is it Detective Sergeant Rigby at the door?
Very good, very good. I'll attend to this. That's quite all right. Thank you very much for letting me know.
He dips out of the way and busies about the rest of his work.
If you'll excuse me, Your Ladyship, I believe that is the Detective Sergeant at the door now. Would you like me to see him into the parlour?
Yes, please, if you would, Fraser.
Very well. So I'll go down and answer the door to Inspector Rigby.
He is a rather slight man. He has a bit of frazzled hair under a well-appointed dress and cap. It does seem like he's had, from the smell that comes with him, he has been somewhere recently that there has been a pretty fresh fire.
Ah, Detective Sergeant Rigby?
Yes, here to see Lady Fitzroy.
Lady Elizabeth will see you in the parlour if you'd care to follow me.
Wonderful.
May I take your hat and coat, sir?
Please, he shrugs off both relatively quickly.
Thank you.
You can tell that much of the smell of fresh wood is caught up in that coat and hat.
Yes, I mean, I'm immediately leaping to the conclusion that he's been on the site of the fire, and that's what's caused this. If you'd be so good as to follow me, sir.
Of course.
And I'll lead him through into the parlour.
Steps in, and he's got a relatively pale complexion. He seems to struggle to smile, but he does give you a proper bow, and when I got your message, came immediately.
Thank you. I do appreciate your haste in this matter.
He stands there and says, What may I do for you in this matter?
I wanted to first ask if there was any news about the professor. He and my family have some acquaintance, you understand, and I'm naturally very concerned.
Yes, of course, I understand your concern. As of 10 minutes ago, we had not been able to locate the professor or his Beddoes, his manservant. The house seems to be a complete loss.
Well, at least there was no body or anything, right?
He looks about the parlor a bit and says, while not for public knowledge, there is no body, no.
Well, that's encouraging, at least. Do you know the professor's itinerary, let's say, for the past few days before this happened?
We do have on record here that he took part in the Challenger lecture at the Imperial Institute.
Yes, I was there, and I thought I could perhaps give you some information that may assist you, maybe.
Yes, please. He dives into a pocket and pulls out a notebook and pencil.
There was this man, is a foreign chap. Fraser could give you a description. I didn't see him very well, but he appeared to be very interested in the professor. He was following him around, watching him very intently. We saw him on 2 different occasions doing this, and if you have no ideas of such a man, then this may help, I think. I thought perhaps I should give this information to you immediately. I don't know his name, but like I said, you could ask my assistant here for a description. But he was definitely very strange and very foreign.
He turns to you, Mr. Fraser. If you please.
Yes, indeed, sir. The man was dark-skinned. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s, perhaps. He had the look of a Turkish gentleman, if I'm correct in my identifying the facial features. He obviously was wearing black tie at the time that I saw him. He had black hair. I'll go through and I'll give a very, very detailed description. Each
time, whether it's from you or from when Rena mentions the word Turkish, it seems to pique his interest a bit.
Is this gentleman known to you, Detective Sergeant?
No, but there have been some reports recently, within the past 6 to 8 months, that there were, well, I don't mean to make a mess of it, of course, or to suggest anything, but there have been reports that some of the passports that have come in have not been clearly marked. It may have been forgeries.
I see.
And while it's not our division, because we deal specifically with arson, I have been asking for them to redouble their efforts.
Yes, I read something in the news this morning, Detective Sergeant, about this Turkish man who apparently died 3 times. Last night as well. I thought perhaps there might be some connection.
An astonishing story. I don't know where they get it. Not my case, of course, but it seems incredible.
It is indeed quite unfortunate. Many people see a lady or a gentleman from another country, and they have some difficulty distinguishing them. So it's entirely possible, I'm sure, that these were simply three gentlemen who looked similar, who all carried identification that marked them out as a particular person. And if, as you say, there are a number of forgeries in circulation, it's entirely possible there may be more people walking around with exactly the same identification on their person.
Quite right, indeed. I will be speaking very shortly with a Professor Courtenay. It seems that from some of the people that we've already spoken to at the Imperial Institute that the professor there was Professor Smith had made a specific to invite Professor Courtenay. He mentioned it to some colleagues, so we'll be speaking with him next.
Your Ladyship, I believe, is this not the gentleman that we were speaking to ourselves?
Yes, the professor was at the dinner with us the other night.
He raises an eyebrow. Really?
Yes, seemed like quite a nice young man, although, well, young. He seemed a little starstruck, maybe might be the right word, I'm not sure. But he seemed a nice enough person. The professor seemed to get along very well with Professor Smith as well. They seemed to be very good friends. Protege, I believe he might have been a protege of Professor Smith.
Yes, that was my thinking as well, Your Ladyship, indeed. The young American lady seemed to take something of a shine to him as well, if I caught it correctly.
Yes, the American one, the brash one. We sent her an invitation, didn't we, Fraser?
Yes, indeed we did. I believe her name was Belanger, is that correct?
Ah, yes. I'm sure we have addresses and everything should you need them, Detective Sergeant.
I would love them. Thank you.
Fraser, if you don't mind, please.
Of course, yes.
Detective Sergeant Rigby waits a bit for Mr. Fraser to retrieve the addresses, and then he begs your pardon because he has to leave. He's hot on this case, so to speak.
Well, thank you very much for coming by. I do appreciate your prompt response, and I do trust that you will keep me updated about my family's friend.
Oh, of course.
I do so greatly appreciate it, and I know you will do your best.
He bows and then takes his leave.
I'll see him to the door, get his hat and his coat for him as well, bid him good day. I'll also look out the information regarding the people that we were speaking to at the function. Indeed, Detective Sergeant, if there's any other way we can be of assistance, please do let us know.
If I or the Yard thinks of anything else that might be of use, we'll be sure to reach back out.
Yes, indeed, and likewise, if you do discover the whereabouts of Professor Smith or indeed the manservant Beddoes, we found him to be a very agreeable gentleman, and we wouldn't like to think he'd come to any harm.
He's got a sterling record as far as the Yard is considered. We don't have anything on file for him. In fact, it must have been a few years ago where he actually gave us some assistance on a case we were working on.
Professor Smith?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Was he a witness to a crime or something of that sort?
Not at liberty to discuss it.
Of course.
But I can, for his part, say that the professor was a credit to the Yard in his testimony.
Oh, very good. I'm sure that doesn't surprise me at all. And if I may be so bold as to ask, this Beddoes, the manservant, would he be a person of interest? I believe is the term you use in the arson. If indeed you do believe it is arson. Or again, perhaps you are not at liberty to say, and if so, I quite understand.
No, it's a fair question. He looks around. I would say that from everything we've read from and spoke to with the area around the house, his neighbors, Beddoes seems to have been loyal. I don't believe we're looking at him for this.
I understand from the newspaper article that he was seen running from the house shortly before the outbreak of the fire. Perhaps indeed he may have seen the perpetrators.
Perhaps. which is why we'd like to speak with him.
If indeed there were any, as I say, I'm assuming that. Am I right in thinking that you have determined whether or not it was arson?
In my initial investigation this morning, I spent several hours picking through what was left after they'd gotten some of the hotter spots down, and by my eye, they used bottles of alcohol to start the fire.
Oh, I see, as an accelerant of sorts. Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, well, it certainly seems as if there were nefarious doings that night.
We will get to the bottom of it. He straightens himself up.
I'm sure you will, Detective Sergeant, and I'll bid you a very good day, and thank you very much for coming so promptly. It's much appreciated.
Good day to you and your lady.
Good day.
He steps away. So, Maggie, after your Aunt Edith calms a bit, what is your plan for the rest of the day? Most of the house has been a little, it's been a little upstart. It's been tumbled a bit now with her attitude.
Yep.
But after she calms and, 2 to 3 glasses of wine later, when she's finally resting comfortably on the chaise, what is your plan?
Well, I did want to, as you said, she's been kind of pleading with me to find out what happened, and that's something that Maggie's more than is interested in doing. And I was wondering if, because Lady Elizabeth had invited us to her house, if I have received that invitation yet, because I might find on it a means of contacting her.
The royal post has been prompt, and you do have the letter.
Oh, perfect. I've been thinking this whole time about how I would contact any of these people. So then I would probably look on that to see there must be a way for me to RSVP or to respond. And then I would utilize that means of getting a hold of her.
Yeah, it should be relatively straightforward. After you've gotten what you need, there are servants and housekeepers here. You could easily send a messenger around to their house. Now, you don't know probably as much as you'd like to about the way the British aristocracy moves and goes around about its duties, but the proper thing to do probably would be to send a messenger between the houses.
Yeah, I don't know if Maggie would do that.
Right.
I feel like Maggie would just want to handle this on her own. Her aunt has tasked her with this. She's very concerned about her aunt. So she doesn't want to go through... It wouldn't even cross her mind these extra steps that might take extra time. And so she very well might just show up.
It clearly doesn't fit into your brash American view.
Clearly.
Take it and freewheel it as you like. What if you think that she would just collect herself and get on over to the Kensington address that she has, perhaps a day earlier than she's supposed to be there?
Well, she would phone. If there was a way of contacting via phone, she might do that first. But otherwise, she would just show up.
Yeah, the telecommunication system, the phone system as it were in 1925, as far as it's a little different here in the UK than it would be at the time in the US. It's much more well-defined here. So would not be difficult at all for you to get an operator and make a connection in that regard.
Yes, then that is exactly what I would do.
Okay. So we'll play this through. We'll play it as it lies. Mr. Fraser, you're coming back in having seen the detective sergeant off, and you see a rather concerned Mr. Hughes, a bit puffed up, and he is making his way towards you, and he says, there is an American woman on the phone. She's introduced herself as a Miss Belanger. She's asking for the lady. It seems to be rather important.
Yes, quite. I'll take the call. If you just pass me the telephone device.
He gives it to you promptly.
Hello, Miss Belanger?
Yes, Mr. Fraser, was it?
Fraser, yes, Fraser.
Yes, I was hoping to speak with the Lady Elizabeth.
Lady Elizabeth, if you just give me one moment, I'll see if she's available. Is she expecting your call?
No, I don't believe so, but I got some horrible news today, and I just wanted to see if she maybe also knew about some stuff, and just Just if she had any information or could help me with something.
Yes, of course. If you just bear with me for a few moments, I'll check to see if her ladyship is available. I'll be right back with you. So I just set the phone down and I'll go up to see Lady Elizabeth. Excuse me, Lady Elizabeth.
Yes, what is it, Fraser?
There's a telephone call for you, lady. Miss Belanger from last night. She seems to have received some sort of disturbing news. I'm wondering if it could be perhaps something akin to what we have been seeing ourselves.
Yes, I would be very surprised if it wasn't.
She's asking if she may speak to you on the telephone.
Oh dear, that dreadful thing. All right, I'll be down in a moment.
Very well. I'll tell her you're on your way presently.
I don't know if she's talking about the telephone or Maggie.
And you'll never know.
Yes.
Yes.
Never mind. So yes, I'll head back down to the phone and say, Miss Belanger, yes, Lady Elizabeth will be down presently. If you just care to hold the line for a few minutes.
Of course. I already was, and I will continue to do so.
I'll make my way downstairs then. I have a little bit of trouble with stairs, particularly in the morning, so it takes me a couple minutes, but I make it.
Hi, Lady Elizabeth?
Yes, Miss Belanger, was it?
Yes, Maggie. I'm sorry to interrupt your day, but me and my aunt have gotten this bad news. I'm not sure if you saw in the paper that the professor's house is burned down.
Yes, the police were just around to talk about it. Dreadful news.
You haven't seen him then? Me and my aunt were quite beside ourselves with worry, and I was hoping that since you seem to be already acquainted with him, that possibly you knew where he was.
I'm afraid I have no idea. I've been rather worried myself. I don't know where he would go or where he would be. I don't think they've found him yet. At least the detective sergeant didn't say that they'd found anyone. So I have hopes he wasn't in the house, but I have no idea where he could be. I'm afraid I can't ease your mind there any.
Well, if he's not, he wasn't in the house and he hasn't turned up, I'm concerned that maybe other nefarious things have happened to him. Have you spoken with anyone else?
Not so far, no. Why?
Well, she seemed to be an acquaintance with Professor Courtney and also that
yes.
Simon fellow. So I was thinking maybe they knew where he was.
Well, I haven't spoken to either of them. They're not exactly in my circle of acquaintances, you understand.
Yes, but you do have their contact information because you sent out these invitations to all of us for tea tomorrow?
Yes. I'm not quite sure it's appropriate for me to give you their information without their permission.
Well, that's fine. I could just pop on by and Mr. Fraser could certainly maybe get a hold of them for you, or we could just give them a call together.
Well, I suppose I could give the professor a call, and if you happen to be in the room, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yes, quite.
I suppose. What time were you thinking, Maggie?
I can head over. Honestly, any time is fine. Probably the sooner the better. As I said, my aunt is quite beside herself, and I'm quite worried as well. The professor seemed like quite a nice gentleman.
Yes, well, if he's a friend of Professor Smith, who is a family friend, I suppose he can't be all bad. Very well, come around, let's say about 2 o'clock?
Yes, that will be fine.
Very well. Was there anything else you needed?
No, that you're doing more than enough.
I should say so. Well, very well, I'll see you this afternoon.
Yes, of course.
So I'll hang up the phone and just tell Fraser what's going on. Tell Mr. Hughes we'll be having tea for 2 this afternoon.
Very well, Your Ladyship. At 4 p.m. as per usual?
Yes, it will probably take about that long.
Very good. I shall ensure that it's laid out for you. And is there anything else I can do for you? I was quite keen to get out to the garden while the light holds.
No, I think I'm going to go have a bit of a lay down, so go outside, enjoy the sun.
Thank you. What little of it we do see.
Okay, so shift camera then back to Simon, you have done some digging in the interim, trying to locate Professor Courtney, and what you have been able to uncover by help of Dr. Pierce is that Professor Courtney lives in Vauxhall, and he gives you a pinpoint address. So you have been able to corral a location.
About how far away is this?
Oh, from you? Maybe a 15-minute journey.
I'll head on over.
Okay. And so we'll pick up the scene then as Simon is making his way up the street towards Professor Courtney's address. Richard has just shrugged on his coat, and he's heading out the door.
Professor Courtney!
So Richard's gonna look round. He's not really expecting to hear from anybody at the minute. And I guess he sees Simon. Oh, you're the fellow from the other evening, aren't you? From the lecture. Simon, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. I wave my rolled up newspaper in his direction. I just read in the paper, sir, that your friend Dr. Smith, there was an accident at his house.
Yes, I must admit, one of my neighbours only just a minute ago gave me a paper, waves it in the air, showing me the same thing. I was about to head over there now. Would you join me?
I'd be happy to.
Well, thank you. I think we should probably take the tube, the fastest way there.
What's the tube?
The London Underground. It's fantastic.
All right. I'm not scared of being underground. It's just a train, right?
It's just a train. It's quite safe. Richard is gonna just he's should we say desperate to get to see Professor Smith, so he's just gonna start walking in the general direction of the tube station.
Yeah, it shouldn't be far for you.
No, and he's gonna look round, so he's not ignoring Simon. He's gonna try and sort of get him to tag along.
I'm keeping pace.
Yeah, the tube is enlightening for you, Simon. It's pretty spectacular. You can imagine in your mind all of the excavation and tunneling work that had to be done to put on this sort of marvel. Now you've seen a ton of different trains over your lifetime, but this is something else.
I heard about this in New York City. They have miners there they call sand hogs that excavate out the areas there for the subways they have there.
Yes, I mean this has been here for some time now, and it's a fantastic way to get around the place, the city.
You don't have earthquakes, do you?
In London, no, nothing like that. It's quite safe, I assure you.
Oh, I believe you.
Do you not have something similar where you're from?
No. Difference is you've got several tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of people here, so you get around like this. Where I'm from, we pile in the jalopy and drive over the mountain.
Oh, you're from the country, are you?
I'm a miner. I'm from the mountains. That's where they do keep the mines.
Ah, so you're used to the underground.
Yes.
I see. I do think we should hurry along.
Of course.
Yeah, the tube ride is fairly quick. Just going down into the area there, you can see from the mapping that they have up, Simon, that the tube seems fairly extensive in London. It's far more extensive than you believed it to be. The journey to St. John's is pretty quick.
Are there any maps? Do they have any maps that can be taken with you, or pamphlets of these tube tunnels?
Likely yes. So why don't we say that you have a London tube map?
Then I'll take out a pencil and I'll mark where we are on the map in relation, because this is totally up Simon's alley.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the arrival at St. John's and then the couple of block walk it is until you reach where the professor's home. Now this is a place that Richard would know very well how to get here. You'd been here recently, but it is an utter disaster upon arrival. This wonderful 2-story home that you seen him expanding the library and that you'd spent some time, you'd had a few dinners here over your time knowing him. It's just gutted from the fire. It seems to be smoldering and smoking still, but the worst of it is out now. You can't imagine anyone living through that. There are a few members of the police staff still working the scene. Members of the London Fire Brigade are there as well. And there are a fair amount of people. They're not necessarily staring at it per se, but there are some gawkers.
So Richard's going to look for somebody official. I don't think he's going to care too much who that might be, and approach them just to find out what's going on.
Yeah, you find somebody official. That's not too difficult. You find a member of the fire brigade who seems to be barking orders at a few other people.
Excuse me. Can you tell me what's going on here, please?
Just putting the rest of it out now.
The professor managed to escape, do you know? Professor Smith?
Well, I'll tell you this, he leans in. We ain't found nobody. I don't think he was here, you hear another man shout.
Well, that's so relief.
Neighbors said that they saw somebody run from the building.
What did he look like?
Dunno.
Oh, okay. Have you searched the place?
Yeah. We searched it after it cooled down a bit.
You didn't find anybody, you said?
Not officially.
Not officially? What does that mean?
There's a Detective Sergeant Rigby at Scotland Yard. You can talk to all the official word on it. You see them continuing to go through it with... it seems like they're using axes and almost like pitchforks to clear away and make sure that any smoldering remains of the house are doused fairly thoroughly.
Surely you can tell me if there was anybody there. I mean, we're not quite related, but he's a very good friend of the family, you know.
You see the man that you'd approached first. He turns back around and says to you, "We're not allowed to public comment until the investigation is concluded, but..."
Yes, absolutely. I've known him for about sort of over 25, 30 years. It must be 30 years almost.
All right. He shuffles into his coat and pulls out a card, and you see the logo and the emblem of Scotland Yard on it. This is a Detective Sergeant Rigby. You'll want to talk to him. He'll probably want to speak with you.
I mean, I won't tell anybody. If you can just tell me.
Why don't you give me a persuade roll, Martin?
Right, so that's a 52, and Richard's got 50. So I think I'm going to spend 2 points of luck to make that a success.
Richard has a 50 persuade. That's a sly. Nobody was expecting that, I'm sure. So he steps up just a bit closer and kind of puts his pitchfork into the ground carefully. All right. I'm sure you were good friends.
Yes.
We didn't find anybody.
Thank goodness for
and the
that.
neighbor across the way there says that she'd seen, I think, his manservant Beddoes run from the place. So I don't think anyone was inside.
That's reassuring. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now you keep your mouth shut about that and go about your business.
I don't know who I'd tell, to be honest, but no, thank you. Thank you.
I'm listening in the whole time. Just being quiet.
Yeah, the fire brigade gentleman doesn't seem to pay you any mind. He talks to Martin, and then after Martin seems to converse with him a bit, he goes back to work.
So Richard will turn around to Simon and say, I think he's okay. I do think we should find this detective sergeant here. Pulls out the card and gives it to Simon.
Take a look at the card, and is there an address on there or a phone number?
There's an address and a name.
I hand the card back. Sure, Professor. Do you want to go ahead and try and head on over there right now?
Yes, I think we should. I'm very keen to find out what's going on here. It's not good. And with that, Richard's going to... I'm assuming he'll know where this detective sergeant is based on the address there.
Absolutely. He appears to be based at New Scotland Yard, basically in between Buckingham and Westminster Abbey. You'd know right about where it's at. And given the map that you have of the tube, it's pretty easy to get there.
Professor, before we head out, would there be any place that Dr. Smith would go to if there was an issue, people he would call on?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, he's got some friends at the university, but I mean, it could be any one of them. I mean, I would like to think that he'd have probably called me if he got himself into a pickle. But I've heard nothing from him. The first I heard of this was this afternoon when my neighbour came round with the newspaper. I mean, his relatives aren't here. They're near where I'm from.
Do you have an office over at the university?
Absolutely. Yes.
Do you have access to a phone from that office?
Yes, there's a phone at the university we can use. Absolutely.
My suggestion then is, why don't we head to the university? That way we can do 2 birds with 1 stone. We can make a phone call to this address in this New Scotland Yard to speak with this individual and the detective, and then we can also check to see if the professor has been by the university or is in his office or has spoken with any of the people there.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I'm glad that one of us is thinking clearly. I'm most in gratitude. Thank you, Simon. Thank you.
So we'll say that the 2 of you head to the university, and in the interim time, or about the same time, Maggie would arrive at Kensington.
Knock, knock, knock.
Is Mr. Fraser, is he guarding the door, or is he going to allow Hughes to...
No, well, I think Mr. Fraser's gone outside to tend to his garden for a little bit, so it will almost certainly be Mr. Hughes who would answer the door, unless we don't have a footman at the house. So,
Maggie, the door opens and you see a well-dressed, a bit older gentleman who is a bit of a stuffed shirt, dressed very smartly. He's very proud, kind of exudes that sort of English butler anima all over the front steps as you stand there. And he says, may I help you?
Yes, Maggie Belanger, here to see the Lady Elizabeth.
Oh, of course. Won't you come in? He's kind of
Yes.
graciously steps aside, allows you in, closes the door, and then you stand there in the foyer for a moment, and he asks you if you would wait right here for a moment.
Sure.
He steps away for a moment, and then he walks towards the back of the house.
Okay.
And alerts you, Mr. Fraser, that Miss Belanger has arrived.
And this whole time, Maggie's craning her head around to, see.
It's pretty fancy in
whatever
there.
I can see in this house, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Fraser will get up off his knees, brush off his trousers, brush his hands, go into the house, wash his hands, and go to the front door. Ah, Miss Belanger.
Mr. Fraser? Yes. Where's the lady? She was expecting me.
Yes, if you'd care to follow me, may I just take your coat? Are you wearing like an outside coat hat?
Yep, of course.
I will take that for you. If you'd care to wait in the parlour, I'll go and let her ladyship know that you've arrived.
Yes, I would be happy to.
This way, please.
Yes.
This place is definitely the pitch perfect of what your imagination thought of when you thought of British aristocracy.
All right.
At least in this area. Everything here is very well taken care of. The floors are immaculate. All of the finery and the hardware is set just so. It's almost as if someone has a tactical need for this house to be just so.
And Maggie has a tactical need to touch some of these things, I feel like.
Wonderful.
So I'll show you through into the parlour then, and then I'll disappear off and knock on her ladyship's door.
And Maggie will be kind of wandering around the parlor, looking at things, picking things up, putting things back down.
Priceless bone trap.
Investigating things.
Your ladyship, Miss Belanger is here.
Ah, excellent. I suppose you showed her into the parlor?
I did, yes. Would you care tea to be served now or later on?
And give it about half an hour, I would say, just so we have time to chat.
Of course.
Thank you, Fraser. And I'll make my way into the parlor. A little slower than I might normally. Just preparing myself for the ball of energy.
And there she is. So I guess the question is what is Maggie doing before she steps in the room? What is she looking at? What is she touching?
Yeah, what is in here for me to look at?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's not my
Not my house.
It's not my house.
So there's a lot of bookcases in here.
Mhm.
Like, a lot of bookcases. It could almost be a second library.
Okay.
So there's a lot of old books in particular. Some of them are kept locked away behind glass, but there's others just laying out. There's a desk with, it looks like a reading desk, not for writing or anything like that. A couch with an end table. There's a couple of more books stacked there. There's notebooks very neatly organized on another table. And it's mostly books and paper and writing implements in this particular room.
Okay.
But it's extremely neat.
Yeah. So kind of what I envision is that Maggie will maybe be looking at the books and kind of like running her finger down them as she's looking at the different titles. And she will probably, when the lady enters, have a book that she has just like grabbed off the shelf and happens to be perusing. And I imagine that these bookshelves are stacked full enough that when you pull one book out, the rest come together, and it's very hard to determine where this book goes back.
I would say that's likely. Mike, I have one question before we proceed, and that would be for Rena. Rena, the book that you have acquired recently, is it in this room?
I would not leave it out where people could get to it, no.
Okay,
it's in my office.
Very good. Proceed.
Okay. Yep, so I'm probably leaning up against something, just like flipping through the pages in this book.
Ah, Maggie.
Oh,
I take it you have some interest in French occult tomes?
Oh, here and there. I like to do a little bit of light reading, heavy reading, sometimes too. Oh, you've startled me a little bit. Here, we should talk. Let me put this away. I'm gonna shove it somewhere.
It doesn't really go there when you shove it there, and so you have to try a couple of different places before it finally finds a spot.
I move books up my park books.
She's put it in right. She's put it in the wrong spot entirely, but.
Elizabeth is just sort of internally grimacing, but too well bred to show it. She says, "Just have a seat. I'll put that back." And she takes it out of the spot where Maggie put it, and then just moves it a couple books down. Says, "There we go."
You do keep quite the tidy home here. But to business, Mr. Smith, you said you hadn't heard from him at all, and I'm assuming you haven't yet?
No, I haven't. Not a word.
Well, I will be honest with you. I'm concerned he may have been kidnapped.
Kidnapped?
Well, he's not there, and he's not showing up, and he would definitely tell one of us or someone. He would get in contact with someone.
Well, how do you know he didn't get in contact with the professor who you were so taken with, Courtney?
Well, he very well could have. You would think, though, that the police sergeant in their investigation would have come up with something.
Well, perhaps they haven't spoken to Professor Courtney yet. It's only been a few hours this morning.
Well, I don't know what kind of police investigation goes on around here, but I would just expect, with this being in the newspaper, that they would be more timely and efficient.
Yes, they're very thorough, and thoroughness, as I'm sure you're unaware, takes time.
That does remind me, you have the contact information for Mr. Courtney, then?
Professor, yes.
Professor, yes.
Yes, I could give him a call, I suppose. We should probably wait at least an hour, I'd say. It's around tea time, and we don't want to disturb him.
Well, if he is so close with the professor, I'm sure that he would understand our concern.
Yes, well, I suppose I could give him a quick call.
Yes, I do think that's a good idea, yes.
I will call him. Not you. It would be highly inappropriate.
Oh, yes, very inappropriate.
Yes. So, I'm gonna ring the bell for Fraser.
Fraser is there in sharpish time? Yes, your ladyship.
Yes, Mr. Fraser, would you mind putting through a call to Professor Courtney? I believe you have his contact information.
I do, yes, indeed.
So please put through the call, and I'll take that if he answers.
Very well, your ladyship. So I'll make my way through to the phone. Hello, operator, Vauxhall 531, please, if you'd be so kind.
Yes. Right away. You hear the connecting tones. It continues for a moment, and then the operator comes back on and says, "It doesn't appear there's anyone picking up."
Ah, very well. Thank you for your help. Good day to you.
Good day.
So I'll make my way back to the parlour again. Your ladyship, I'm afraid Professor Courtney doesn't seem to be at home.
Then I suppose that's it. Thank you, Fraser. She just looks over at Maggie and says, "Well, either he's not home or he's got his head buried in one of those books. You know what professors are like, I assume."
I have known one or two in my time. Well, I'm at a loss then. How do you suppose that we solve this problem?
What problem?
But we don't know where the professor is.
No, but that's surely a job for the police.
Well, but it sounds like their system is quite slow here.
Slow? You mean they're actually taking the time to follow leads and clues and all that sort of thing instead of just running around grabbing whoever they see fit to accuse of the crime?
Well, possibly all they need to grab is Mr. Courtney, and he would know exactly where the professor is at. At least that's what you have implied.
I merely stated it was a possibility.
Well, it just seems like we have come to an impasse here.
There's a knock at the parlor door.
Yes?
Do you hear Mr. Hughes? Sorry, there's a messenger here.
Yes? What does he want?
He's dropped off a note.
Bring it in, Mr. Hughes.
You see Mr. Hughes bring it in, and then it's a small white envelope. It seems sealed. There you are, my lady.
I'll take it and just open it, but slightly at an angle because I don't want Maggie looking over my shoulder.
Fancy. Okay. And I will move to the university with Simon and Professor Courtney. So the two of you hunker down here and begin working the levers, so to speak. What's the first thing on your list of objectives?
Professor, how about you make the phone calls, since it's your office, and I'll go chat up the staff.
Yes. If you ask at reception, I'm sure they may be able to help you with some of Julius's contacts. I'm not entirely sure of all their contact details, so yes, us. If you explain the situation, they may be able to help you with a list or something.
All right then, let's do this.
Okay, so you're heading to reception. At reception, it's manned by a lady who seems to be sorting mail.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Oh, good afternoon.
I was wondering if Dr. Smith had checked in today.
No, there have been a few people who have asked about him. I had a call. He may be indisposed.
Understood. I believe I may have been the person who placed the call.
Okay, yes, I do appreciate that. I recognize your voice.
It's probably uncommon to hear around here, but I checked in over at the professor's residence. Well, the doctor's residence, pardon me. I'm getting used to all the titles around here. And we were wondering if he had possibly come in here to check in, since he would have an office here as well.
Well, I can tell you the same thing I've told the Scotland Yard when they stopped by this morning, which is that he hasn't been in.
do you have the name of the detective who stopped by this morning?
Yes. It seems it was Detective Sergeant Rigby.
Thank you, ma'am. Has anybody else in the doctor's department been in today?
You hear a bell as someone steps through the door. You see a young man, probably in his late teens. He steps up to the reception, seems in a bit of a rush, and says, could you direct me to Professor Courtney's office? And the lady behind reception seems offended, at least from your read on her social stance. And she turns to the man and says, just one moment, I'm almost finished here. I'm terribly sorry. What was your question again? She says to you.
Oh, my question is, has anyone else from Dr. Smith's department checked in today?
No, we've had no other. It's a relatively calm day on campus today.
All right, ma'am, I really do appreciate your time. If you'd like, I can direct the gentleman here as I'm heading up to speak to Professor Courtney as we conclude here.
Oh, wonderful. She nods and seems to go back to sorting her. The young man says, yeah, that'd be great.
Follow me, son.
He steps in line behind you, and Richard, you receive not only one guest, but now two, as a younger gentleman follows Simon in close behind.
I see you've brought someone with you, Simon. Who is this?
Just a messenger, sir. He steps forward and hands you a white card.
Richard will take the card and flip it open.
The card itself contains a message. And as you read it, you instantly recognize the handwriting, the sweeping letters.
So Richard's going to look at the card and slip it into his jacket pocket.
You see that on the back of the card there is an address, and it appears to be for a relatively run-down portion of Cheapside. Probably not somewhere that you get very often.
Richard's just going to slip this into his jacket pocket. He's going to kind of try and make out that it's nothing, nothing of interest, normal sort of run-of-the-mill stuff.
Sure.
Students, will they ever? I'm very keen to phone this Detective Sergeant Rigby. He may know where the professor is, possibly, or he may know something. Would you excuse me when I make the call?
The messenger tips his hat and then leaves. He's off as soon as he's arrived, basically.
Son, hold on. I hand him 5 pence. I'm not sure of the coinage here, so I'm looking at an appropriate tip.
You're going to hand him a tip. He graciously waits in line until you give him a tip. There's no worry about him running off now.
So I tip him, and then I'm assuming he leaves.
Yeah, unless you have any questions for him. Actually, give me a spot hidden roll, if you would, for Richard.
Okay. So that is 18, which is Richard's got 60, so that's a hard success.
Wonderful. So you notice on the back of this envelope before you open it, there was a wax seal on it. That wax seal is something that you have seen Professor Smith use before. This is definitely from him.
Okay. Yeah, so as I say, Richard's not going to make too much of this based on the message that's written on the card. So he's going to pick up the telephone receiver, take out the card that the fire brigade worker gave him with the Detective Sergeant Rigby's number on it, and see if he can get hold of Detective Sergeant Rigby.
Okay. Yeah, you call New Scotland Yard, and the message that you get from them is that he's not in, that he's still out working a few cases.
It appears that he's busy, which I suppose is perfectly understandable given the situation. Was the lady at reception able to help you with a list of contacts?
Oh, I didn't bother asking for those. I was just seeing if anybody was in.
Oh, I see.
And also, yes, actually, your Detective Sergeant Rigby dropped by this morning. and already spoke with her.
He's certainly been busy. It's a little embarrassing. I mean, I know of Professor Smith's contacts at the university, but I don't know any of them socially. I don't really know how to get hold of them unless they're here. I'm afraid I don't think many of them are, or would be normally. I mean, sometimes I'm here at the weekend catching up on things, or a little research, that sort of thing. I mean, we could take a wander and see if we can find any of them, but I don't hold out a lot of hope.
Well, she said none of them were in. I did ask that, but on the other hand, we can head down to the desk and ask her. She might be more amenable to giving you the information about Dr. Smith's academic contacts as opposed to me coming off the street.
Yes, that's fair enough. Should we head down there then?
Okay.
So Richard will lock his office door and head on down with Simon.
Okay, we will flip back to Kensington. So you've received your message, Lady Elizabeth. The question is now what will you do with it, if anything?
Do I recognize the handwriting at all?
You don't actually immediately, so you would need a hard spot hidden roll.
Well, let's see what I can do. My spot hidden is pretty decent. By decent, I mean average.
Average investigator spot hidden.
Come on, 25. No.
Okay.
That was a fail.
So you do not recognize it, but to get to the handwriting, you've opened the envelope. So unless you're completely covering up everything you're doing and being super, super obvious of doing so, others in the room would notice that there is a wax seal on the envelope, which would be a little strange for everyday mail.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what the card says. You can see that there is an address to a place in Cheapside, and you are a little bit more familiar with some of the areas of London that you would probably want to not necessarily socialize in so much. That is definitely one of them. But yeah, that's what you get from it. You get the message.
Well, Maggie.
Does that happen to be the ransom note?
No. It appears to be from the professor.
Oh.
Or at least it purports to be.
And what does it say?
I show it to her without letting her take the card.
Okay.
I will read from a distance.
We're all being very paranoid today. That's okay. I prefer paranoia. It's reality on a finer scale. So
I don't know her that well.
And just because it came from the professor, Maggie is not convinced he hasn't been kidnapped.
Sure. No, absolutely. It totally makes sense to me that he might have actually been kidnapped. Who knows? So the note, so it says, "Come at once. I haven't long. For God's sake, let no one follow you. J.A. Smith."
Well, we must go at once. And let no one follow us.
I'm just shaking my head a little bit. It's not a very nice area of town. And we don't know for sure it's from him. I'm not sure it's wise.
Possibly we could, not let anyone know it's us. Go in disguise.
We don't do disguise, dear. I'm gonna, because I assume Fraser's left the room, so I'm gonna ring for him to come back.
Perhaps we could send Fraser?
Yes, Mr. Fraser is currently arranging tea and sandwiches for you.
So when he comes in with the tray, I've had some interesting mail, Fraser.
Yes, your ladyship.
Set the tray down, and I'm gonna hand him the card.
Oh.
What do you think?
Well, Cheapside. Wax seal?
Yes, it's all rather strange, isn't it?
Yes, it's peculiar.
So, Mr. Fraser, you can make a spot hidden roll if you'd like, because you handled the invitation to the Imperial Institute as well.
Lady Elizabeth, are you scared to go muck about with the common people then?
No, I just, prefer not to have things thrown at me, or to trip over things, or any of the other sort of nonsense that goes down in that sort of area.
I see. Perhaps we should go late at night when everyone's sleeping then.
Yes, that's definitely the best way to stay alive.
Okay, so I'll make my spot hidden roll. No, that's 74 over 70. I just missed it.
All right, then. You're welcome to push the roll if you'd like.
Or spend luck.
Well, I think I'll hold on to my luck just for now. But for the sake of entertainment,
Sure.
I'll take the note over to the window and hold it up so I can get a light. Because obviously it's kind of a wintry day. Maybe it's not particularly light in the room, and if I get a little bit closer to what meager daylight there is outside, I'll be able to see it a bit better. We'll see. That's much better. That's a 49 over 70. So.
Oh, wonderful.
This is the case.
So after getting that extra light, you realize that the graceful movement on the card here, the way the pen has moved, is very similar to the way the name was signed on the invitation to the Challenger lecture. The handwriting is too similar to have been, in your estimation, to have been copied. Same hand.
Okay. So it's definitely Dr. Smith's handwriting then. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
You are remembering it correctly.
Yes. I thought for a moment we'd received the note from somebody else there to the Challenger lecture.
No,
I was like, have I picked up completely the wrong end of the stick there?
Nope, you got it right.
So yes, this is quite clearly Dr. Smith's handwriting indeed. Yes.
Well, there we have it.
Yes.
It was written by him, possibly under duress, who knows. But we should definitely... It says that we should come.
Yes. Well, I mean, it is J.A. Smith, and personally, I don't believe I know any other J.A. Smiths. So.
Maggie, are you in the habit of running around to anyone who sends you a note asking you to come?
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me in the least.
That's how you get into the best parties.
And into other things, I assume. Fraser?
Yes, your ladyship. I'm sorry. I was just looking at. For God's sake, let no one follow you. This seems somewhat urgent, doesn't it?
It does, rather. Pull the car around, Fraser. We'll go have a look.
Indeed, your ladyship. At once.
Yes, and you'll drive us, of course.
Of course, your ladyship.
Now, as he leaves, I ring for Bennett, my lady's maid, to bring me my coat and hat and all that sort of thing.
She does. Happily brings you all of the things that you need. And she seems a little concerned that you're going out in this chill, so she's packed a bit of a thicker coat for you. She says
this
it's
will
for
do
the best.
excellently, thank you.
So back to the university, Simon and Richard, what are your next steps then? You have this burning note in your pocket now, Richard.
Yeah, so Richard, really wants to do what's right by the professor, so he's taken heed of the fact that he doesn't really want anyone else coming other than what he thinks, other than just Richard. And Richard doesn't really know what to do, so he's sort of stuck. He's thinking to himself, he's got this chat with him, he's probably not going to be able to shake him off that easily, so he's just going to turn round to Simon and say, "Terribly sorry to ask you this, Simon, wasn't it? This note I've been handed, it's not from a student, it's from the professor, but he has asked that I go alone. I barely know you, but could I impose upon you to attend with me? But maybe stay at a safe distance when we're there. I would hate to upset the professor. I've no idea what state he's in."
Fair enough. So you want me to hang back where no one can see me, but to keep an eye on you?
I appreciate it's a very strange thing to ask, but, given the circumstances, it's certainly not polite, but needs must.
Do you think the professor's okay?
I mean, he's written this note, which is promising, but this is most unlike him to write notes and send them by messenger like this. I mean, he must be out of his mind. He must be terrified out of his mind.
You think he was forced to write that note?
I shouldn't think so. It bears his seal. He would not have done that, I'm sure, if it was under duress. But it does seem to have more than a passing sense of urgency about it.
Well, this is just me, but can't anyone else put a seal on it? Is it the seal or like what is this seal?
It's a piece of wax. You put the wax on the back of the envelope, and you have this ring or stamp with a unique mark in it. It's like a signature, but rather than write it with a pen, you press the seal, the metal thing into the wax, and it produces a pattern, a symbol on it, which is unique. I mean, I guess you could copy it, but it would be most unusual for that to happen.
Or you could break into a professor's house, the doctor's house, burn it down, no one would know it was missing, and have it.
That's true, but it is his handwriting as well, not just the seal.
Which he could have been forced to if he was kidnapped and his seal was taken. How about I hang back, you go do this, but why don't you be a little bit more careful? This sounds like a trap to me.
Well, if you think so, I'm keen to find out. But yes, I think you're right. We should be careful. Should we go?
Absolutely, you lead on.
So the two of you collect yourselves. Are you going by tube, or are you going to have a cab bring you there, or how do you think they would handle that?
I think.
Oh, it's absolutely going to be the tube. This is fascinating. I'm going to mark it on the map, and I'm going to keep track of where we get on and off.
Sure. Okay, so the two of you begin to head your way there, and then from Kensington, the three of you bottle yourself into an auto and head to the address as well, and that is where we will end tonight. So I want to thank all of our listeners for continuing along with the investigation and the adventure as it is. We will see you next time when we arrive in Cheapside and we see what is behind this mysterious note.